except the Bloomington and Columbus area, and then in Lafayette. And of course, we enjoy coming here to Ball State for the Muncie area to talk to you. So you can see we're an active organization, and we represent different building products, and each of these chapters across the company have those particular local representatives, members of their organizations also. I noticed that you have many displays in the building with some of our products as well as other products on display, and I commend the students for taking such an active part in using the actual products in these displays. It looks very nice. And like I mentioned, we would welcome you to talk to us anytime during the day that you would like to. This afternoon there will be the energy seminar, and there are 3 parts to the seminar. There will be going on simultaneously slide presentations. One will be on exterior materials, one on interior materials, and the other on heating, ventilating, and air conditioning. They will be going on at the same time. We would like you to pick whichever one of these you would like to go to first, and then after each one of these, rotate and go to the one that you hadn't been to previously. If you would kind of be very attentive to how many are in a particular room, and maybe we can balance this out a little bit so there won't be too many in one and not very many in another. We would appreciate it very much. So Dean, thank you very much for inviting us here, and we're happy to be here, and perhaps some future time we can have another one.
Thanks, Bill. It's very nice that the Producers Council will help us out every year with a tabletop display and work with our students. It's a good help to the college. At this point, I would turn the program over to Professor Ewing Miller, who will act as moderator at least for the morning sessions here, or maybe for the whole day, is it? For the morning session. Professor Koehler.
Thank you very much, Ollie. I would like to introduce to you our keynote speaker. The title of the talk he will give to us is simply Energy Outlook. As you know, Mr. Thomas F. Kibler, director of the Indiana Energy Office, has a tremendous task to do to coordinate energy happenings, if you can say it in a very general term. As a short introduction, I would like to indicate something of Mr. Kibler's background. He was firmly rooted in business, was co-owner of a family business and a trucking company. His educational background includes a degree in economics from the Wharton School of Finance and Commerce of the University of Pennsylvania. He has varied experiences, entered government in 1970 on executive vice presidential and directors levels, and in 1974, April 1974, just about to the day 3 years ago, he assumed the responsibility of director of the Indiana Energy Office. The small staff under his leadership has done a tremendous job to get things started. He will tell us about it. So without any further ado, Mr. Thomas F. Kibler, who will talk about Energy Outlook.
I think we have it, and you'll have to pardon me on putting that together, because I do want to keep my hands free to handle some notes that I have prepared for this presentation this morning. Do appreciate the opportunity to be here. This, as well as other conferences similar to it, are vitally needed as we attack the problem that I hope certainly this enlightened group is well aware of concerning the seriousness of our energy problem that we face not only in Indiana, but in the nation. It has been 3 years since my appointment to this office. As I start my 4th year, I am in the unique position in relation to energy that I have experienced 2 crises and have been placed in a position of unbelievable hardships, disbelief, resulting from the inability of our way of life and our natural resources to provide us with energy supplies to which we've become accustomed. In my remarks, I would like to relate some of the experiences that I have encountered in this last 3 years. Then I would like to get to more tangible discussion of what your state and what our office is attempting to do to overcome it. The period between the easing of the gasoline shortage to last fall has been obviously filled with seemingly endless energy debate. It's occupied a major role in our news media with discussions involving charges, countercharges, and concerning the genuineness of our problem. The period has also been marked by increasing energy costs on all fronts, as well as extended discussion concerning the availability of alternate supplies to replace traditional sources. Surveys conducted last summer indicate a gradual increase in the percentage of citizens that have accepted energy as a problem. I noticed over the weekend that a survey by the Gallup poll, most recent update, now indicates a 60% acceptance on the severity of the problem that faces our nations. But there continues to be an overall frustration and confusion on the part of all of our citizens towards the problem. Today, we've reached the end of another serious crisis in our state. But we have to wonder, have we learned our lesson any better this time? Will we resort to finding a whipping boy to blame? Are we going to forget the seriousness of our situation in January and simply ignore the fact that this country, irrespective of the genuine belief or our area, our attitude of conspiracy on the part of a great majority, a great percentage of our citizens, that we ignore the simple fact that this country is running out of energy. The blame cannot be laid at the door of a greedy industry, and ignore the fact that in particular we are presently in our 8th straight year in the United States of using and consuming more natural gas than the exploration and development aspect end of this industry has been able to find. The major problem faced by Indiana and the nation in the immediate future is the supply of this vital commodity, natural gas. The amount available for shipment through the 10 pipelines serving Indiana has been on a steady decline the past several years. For 2 years, we at the Indiana Energy Office have attempted to explain the seriousness of this problem and alert industry and industrial and commercial users to the need for providing alternate fuel capabilities. After the first curtailments in Indiana occurred in Evansville during the winter of 74-75, we witnessed a gradual increase in natural gas-related problems throughout the state. Predictions in the fall of 1975 indicated a 23% deficiency of natural gas compared to maximum potential usage. In 1976, these projections were raised to 28%. Now, it must be understood, our projections were based on normal levels of industrial activity throughout the state and predicated on normal winter conditions. Lower economic activity and warmer than normal winters for the last two heating seasons have cast doubt on the validity of our warnings and even in many instances given rise to allegations of ulterior motives that were merely trying to pressure Congress into deregulating gas. This year, however, all rules are off. In August, a projected deficiency of supply to the Indiana Gas Company, which serves the largest geographic section of Indiana, including Lafayette, Huntington, Marion, Muncie, and Anderson, and south through Martinsville, Bloomington, on to Jeffersonville and Madison, caused this firm to announce that effective September the 15th, they would curtail 100 industrial customers. This reduction, I say industrial and commercial customers who had been on interruptible contracts. This reduction affected 11 hospitals, 4 schools, 1 nursing home, and 1 correctional institution, the Indiana Youth Center. A colder than normal fall disturbed many of us. Instead of the Indian summer that we've experienced in past years, we experienced a continuation of subnormal conditions. Degree day differences in Indiana through the end of December were 40% colder than 1975 and 30% below normal. Throughout this period, natural gas became an increasing problem. In mid-December, the Indiana Gas Company announced a second curtailment. This involved 234 individual customers north of US 40 or I-70. Effective for the balance of December, the curtailment was made with the possibility it would extend through the month of January. Included in this second jolt to Indiana were 34 more schools, 6 more hospitals, and 1 additional nursing home. Now, the cold fact is that we can't ignore that while many of these individual customers pleaded for restoration of natural gas, the bulk of our citizens were comfortable debating increasing prices of energy, oblivious to potential supply problems. But suddenly, January 1977 unfolded. Conditions that had not been experienced for 100 years were upon us. After abnormally heavy snowfall, sub-zero temperatures paralyzed Indiana and most of the Midwest. Wind chill factors of 65 degrees below zero had never been heard of nor experienced by most Hoosiers during their lifetime. Never had we anticipated a 24-hour period when temperatures would only warm up to 11 degrees below zero. An unbelievable statistic to me. I think we ought to let it sink in. The week ending January the 16th, the average degree day reading, weighted for the entire state of Indiana, was 60% colder than normal. Think what this did in the way of increasing demand. Suddenly in mid-January, pipelines canceled approved 60-day emergency gas purchase contracts. Curtailments of firm contracts by interstate pipelines to Indiana gas distributors were cut due to unforeseeable diminishing of supply facilities. A tally sheet which we kept available at the office and at home added an additional curtailment tally almost on an hourly basis. In January, it rose constantly. 320 firm customers by Indiana Gas were reduced to plant protection levels only. Citizens Gas in Indianapolis curtailed 2,300 customers to 40% of their normal supply, with 59 plants taken down to plant protection levels. But then in the latter part of January, the roof caved in when NIPSCO, the Northern Indiana Public Service Company, which serves 30 counties in northern Indiana, announced severe curtailments to 2,606 different and individual customers. At this time, our tally sheet added to 3,081 curtailments to plant protection levels. Can anyone in this room imagine any type of atom bomb attack that could wreak such havoc in the industrial sector of our state? Have you ever heard of a strike or any type of natural disaster that could close over 3,000 plants at one time? Do you ever recall in Indiana when every single school throughout the state, of an elementary or secondary level, was closed, due either to shortages of energy supplies, fuel supplies, or impossible road conditions? And we'll all recall the weekend of January the 28th, when the blizzard hit the state of Indiana, which resulted in impossible transportation conditions in the northern portion of our state. At one time, there was not one single north-south highway open in northern Indiana. In over 30 counties, all state and county roads had been declared totally impassable. Added to our dilemma at the Energy Office was the frozen condition of the Ohio River, because it's by water transportation that most of the petroleum that serves southern Indiana is delivered. The natural gas shortages, the problem of road and river transportation produced disaster or near disaster energy problems one end of the state to the other. At this point, we in the Indiana Energy Office had 25 hospitals that had been curtailed totally of their natural gas supplies. Of these, 7 were served by the Indiana Energy Office with alternate number 2 heating oil supplies. There were 3 hospitals in Evansville that we moved product from central Indiana to the south. Richmond, Brazil, and Vincennes were totally curtailed, and none had been able to obtain heating oil from their traditional supply and services. There were over 310 allocations that were made by our office in a period of 6 weeks, which was equal to, if not greater in its intensity, from the time of the gasoline shortages that were caused by the Arab embargo of late 1973 and early 1974. If we analyze the problem, which really was predictable, however, caught many of us because of its intensity by surprise that did occur during this last winter, we have to talk, as our discussions inevitably get around to finding solutions to this problem, and how can we plan and how can we work towards alleviating the critical shortages that certainly are going to grow in intensity. Well, really, they're rather simple. Find more energy, use less energy, or develop alternatives to traditional sources that you've been used to using. Now, what's your state's role, and how do we fit into any of these categories of finding more, using less, or developing alternatives? Well, primarily, the logical role of any state is to provide leadership in and regulatory processes when required towards encouraging conservation, or in other words, utilizing less energy to do the same job. It's also a logical role, and your state has been active in that area, in encouraging the development of alternatives. And these alternatives, as they most likely apply to alleviating our problem in Indiana, follow 2 lines: the development of potential gasification projects, liquefaction projects that will utilize our abundant natural resources of coal to provide either liquid or gaseous forms of petroleum-based products to serve the industrial and commercial sector. And secondly, to encourage to the greatest degree possible development of solar energy, which can serve to minimize our needs for all types of petroleum as well as electricity in the residential and commercial heating sector. Our efforts in conservation have been majorly developed or directed towards more efficient and better utilization of energy in the built environment. We are working on this area in our office, and I believe that our prime responsibility has been accomplished. But it's now up to your area, your field, to utilize the guidelines which have been developed to more effectively use and cut down energy in this tremendous area. Because the role of the designer in the area of construction is self-evident. Estimates of national energy use in this sector, estimated by AIA, equals 33% of all energy utilized in the nation. Now, speakers much more qualified than I from a technical standpoint can address you concerning the importance of proper planning for and utilization of sound thermal practices and the importance of proper planning during the course of construction. If higher costs are involved, but studies indicate this is not necessarily so, the public must be educated to the fact that higher initial costs will be offset during the cycle of ownership in the built area by lower energy costs, particularly during this period of increasing utility pricing structures. In this area, I believe the proper government role is more than one of urging voluntary compliance. Therefore, the establishment of and enforcement of proper standards for residential and commercial construction has been one area that we have been extremely active in. And I think all of you are aware that it's an area of enforcement or development of standards that has not been usurped by the federal level. Indiana is one of 23 states that has had the authority for the development of building code standards in the commercial area, as well as the enactment of residential standards that then are enforced in the local sector. In 1974, however, the Attorney General of Indiana ruled that the Administrative Building Council did not have the authority to adopt standards that relate only to wiser use of energy. Accordingly, your present administration has proposed legislation to the last three sessions of the General Assembly, to establish the authority within the Administrative Building Council of Indiana to enact standards that reflect wiser uses of energy. Legislation has failed in the last two sessions prior to this one. I'm happy to report that during the 1977 session of the General Assembly, which is now winding up, this authority was introduced, has passed both houses of our legislature, did pass without a single negative vote. This positive reversal in attitude on the part of the General Assembly, in my opinion, can be attributed to two things. Obviously, the impact of the winter of '77, plus the fact that our office, in combination with the Administrative Building Council officials of the state government, conducted meetings this last fall with representatives of your industry, the construction area, all ASHRAE representatives, all interested groups that could be affected by such legislation, and gained their unanimous support, which then they translated to the members of the Assembly. So the bill is now history. The passage of the bill is now history in Indiana. It's been signed by Governor Bowen, and I'm sure that Don McCrae this afternoon will discuss in detail their plans for implementation of this newly granted authority and reflect on its potential towards better use of energy in the state. The other area is solar energy. Our office, as of a year ago, determined that the first round of grants in the federally supported solar demonstration program had been announced with grantees throughout the entire country in the commercial and residential sector, with none being given to any builder or developer in the state of Indiana. To put it mildly, this was a rather blue day in the state energy office as we reported these findings to Lieutenant Governor Orr, who, to put it mildly, is a great proponent of the potential of solar energy, and to the governor's office. Accordingly, however, with the facilities that we have available, we did become aware of and did get acquainted with the actual techniques and procedures of the federally sponsored solar demonstration program. It runs in two sectors: commercial projects that are underwritten and administered entirely by ERDA, the Energy Resource Development Administration, and in the residential sector by HUD. Although funding does come through ERDA sources, the administration is under the Housing and Urban Development Department. Last summer, we conducted again, in cooperation with representatives of your industry, a seminar for builders, realtors, developers in the area of mechanical engineers, to acquaint them with the details of and the potential of this so federally sponsored program. And my opening remarks at that seminar, which was attended by over 300 people in Indianapolis, was not that we were there to discuss the potential or techniques or technical aspects of solar energy, of what it could or could not accomplish, but merely to alert Indiana and those that are in a position to utilize the program to the fact that the federal government during the year 1977 would invest, in fact, $33 million to sponsor demonstration solar projects, generally speaking, on almost 100% federal level of participation and support. The result of this seminar in the second phase of HUD's residential program, 5 applications were filed from Indiana, and I'm happy to report that one was granted to a residential builder in Greenwood, Indiana. Last fall, the second cycle, or phase 2 of the ERDA commercial program was open for applications. There were 14 applications filed from the state of Technical, and presently I'm happy to report of the 14 applications, 3 did pass the technical review phase of the review process, and are now are now actively negotiating with ERDA representatives relative to cost sharing formulas. Those 3 that passed involve a grade school in the Clarksville area, the shopping center at the closed mall shopping center, architecturally awarded, recognized mall shopping area in Columbus, Indiana, and the third one is a new planned vocational education school that is being constructed by Ivy Tech in northern Indiana. The one solar project that the state of Indiana did develop and put together to cover a district state police office or state police post in southwestern Indiana failed to pass the technical review part of the process. So it will not be granted. Hopefully we can improve the design of the project and be eligible for the next phase. Additionally, Indiana, through total 100% state funding, has constructed the solar heated welcome station at the reservoir in eastern Indiana. You'll be hearing more about that later on today. And another one is planned possibly for a state facility in southwestern Indiana. This is pretty much of a thumbnail of where we stand in Indiana. And I do try and bring it to you hurriedly so that you will know that within the resources of the available funding, that the administration is trying to actively promote development of alternate supplies and encourage conservation in all areas. I'd like to close, if I could, by the favorite story that I have heard that highlights the extent of the problem that faces our state and our nation. Many of you may have heard it, but to me, I think it's a story that we ought to take to heart and recognize for the truthfulness aspect of the story instead of the unreal world that most of us seem to live in as we analyze and think about the problem we face. But it does involve the Secretary of the Interior of the United States and that fateful day that will someday occur when the Secretary of the Interior walks into that Oval Office with a dirty, dirty bucket, which will be dripping black or dark, dark brown. And in spite of that drip, he's going to walk into that office, and right on the carpet in front of that large desk, he's going to put that bucket on the carpet and look up and say, "I'm sorry, sir," or Madam President, if that's appropriate at that time, "but Mr. President or Madam President, in my capacity as Secretary of the Department of Interior, I have the unpleasant task today of bringing to you and placing in front of you the last bucket of oil that's available within the domestic 48 states." That day will occur. The actual timing of that day depends to a great degree on what you and I do relative to using our energy smarter between now and the day of the last bucket of oil. And certainly those of you who complete your education here at this institution and go out to practice your trade are going to vitally affect by your actions and by your ability to sell to your customers, to your owners, the need for and utilization of energy much more wisely than we've used it in the past. It will take a change of attitude. It will take a change of understanding on the part of all of us. But I say to you, dependent upon your actions and dependent upon ours and our ability to convince the public, we can delay that day of the last bucket of oil. And I hope that you all join in this effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Kibler.